Dr. Lynda, welcome to the Queer Divorce Club. So happy to have
Oh,
you
thank
today.
you. Yes, thanks for having me. I'm super excited and jazzed about this.
I am too. I've been following you on TikTok and I love all you talk about with couples, and I'm interested in kind of turning it on its head today. So I'm excited about that.
Me too.
To get us started, can you give us, our listeners, a little glimpse at your background, how you work with couples, and any experience you've had with queer divorce?
Sure, happy to. Yeah, so on a personal side, I came out when I was in college, so I'm one of the, I don't know, lifelong lesbians. And got my doctorate way back in 1996. And since then, I've been doing couples therapy, and started out kind of a general population. And for the last 5 years, I've concentrated on lesbian and queer relationships. I founded the Lesbian Couples Institute about 5 years ago, in August of 2018. And my wife is also a therapist. Lisa and I work together at LCI for short. I have primary work on saving relationships, and I also work at helping couples have conscious uncoupling if they decide they need to go their separate ways. I've even done some private, like 1 or 2 day retreats specifically for uncoupling, so that couples can, just be super conscious about the process, and it's just a really nice transition from we're a couple to, okay, now we're not going to be, and to do it in a really heartfelt and positive way. So those are some of my experiences professionally. I ended a 10-year relationship. We weren't legally married. It wasn't legal at the time. So I've been through a significant breakup after a long relationship. And my wife was previously married to a man and went through a divorce. And so I got to witness the aftermath of that. We were friends long before we became partners. And so we were on that journey together. Yeah. So both professionally and personally, I'm familiar with divorce.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I like how you mentioned, big breakups. And we were talking a little bit before we got on just how new queer divorce legally is.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that there hasn't been these big breakups over time in queer couples that are just right. Like a divorce.
That's right.
Yeah. Through the work that you do, you just mentioned it a little bit. You have Lesbian Couples Institute, you help, build stronger habits. We also do some conscious uncoupling too. I'm intrigued though, what would you say are the cornerstones of like a long-term healthy relationship?
I love that. So I think what I like people to get their head around is that what you're going for is creating a very secure relationship, right? So that you want to create secure attachment within your couple relationship. And that requires that you really take time to get to know each other, yourself and your partner, that you get really good at communication. That seems to be something that's missing in a lot of relationships, all relationships, I would say, at least 99% of the ones that I have gotten to work with. I believe it's really important to prioritize the relationship and make it at least as important as your parenting role, for sure, as important as your careers. And so really putting relationship first is a cornerstone. I also believe that discussing and coming up with very explicit agreements that protect your relationship beyond like vows. I'm not talking about marriage vows. I'm talking about personal agreements within the relationship that are designed to protect the relationship over time. And we don't learn that either. Not usually from our own parents, and for sure not from school. And I don't think I mentioned quick repair. So something that's really important for building security and safety is that when you mess up, that you are willing to approach your partner and make a quick repair, a heartfelt apology, What that does is it keeps the mistake or the oops or even the unintentional pain from landing in long-term memory. And so a quick repair is really important to keep that balance of more positives than negatives in the relationship that John Gottman talks about.
Yeah, repair has been on my mind a lot as a little sidetrack, but it keeps coming up. I think, doesn't Gottman say that 70% of your relationship needs, like 30% you'll get it right the first time and 70% takes all that repair? I'm getting those stats right, but like, oof, that's a lot
That's
of
probably
repair.
right. Repair is just
That's
really crucial because we're
yeah.
human and we're going to get our feelings hurt when our partner didn't mean to. And sometimes we're going to inadvertently do something that's hurtful. And so repairing that quickly is super important.
Yeah. Yeah. So if I'm thinking there, you just said building security is really important, and you can do that through communication is number one, healthy communication, quick repair, putting your relationship first. There's another one I'm missing. What's the other one? You remind me.
Explicit agreements.
Explicit agreements. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And taking time. And I think, at least for my experience with lesbian couples, is that sometimes there's such an urgency to the urge to merge. You've heard of that probably. That we as a group tend to like move so quickly into moving in together and that sort of thing. And so take a deep breath, and there's plenty of time. Use it to get to know each other.
I love that. So if we're going through this relationship, we're merging quickly, to stay healthy over time. We're getting to, I know you've worked with couples that are consciously uncoupling. What do you think are the biggest hurdles throughout those healthy relationships? I think communication, number one, being able to
Yes,
speak for
communication is
yourself,
huge.
right?
Yes, communication is a really big one. I think, another big hurdle point is after the honeymoon stage is over, and that can last anywhere from 12 to 18 months. And then the second stage of a relationship, people call it different things. I call it the power struggle stage. And you want to move out of that pretty quickly. And so that third stage, technically the term is differentiation. And basically it's where you strike the balance between the we as a couple and the two me's. So you move back into a state of that balance, recognizing, we are different, we have differences. How are we gonna handle our differences? A big hurdle is learning to speak up. So, for many people, especially women, we're socialized to be people pleasers, to keep the peace. And so often we kind of shut down our voice because we don't want to rock the boat. That's a no-no. If you want long-term healthy relationship, you have to not avoid, right? So you have to stop the avoidance of vulnerability or tough conversations, or the fear that we're going to end up fighting sometimes stops people from speaking up.
I'm intrigued by those stages of a relationship. So you said the power struggle stage is the stage after the honeymoon stage. Is that the time in which you're like navigating the building of security? What is that stage?
Yes, I think so. And really navigating, kind of coming out from under the influence of love hormones that have us all hopped up. And in that first stage, we're so focused on our similarities. And that feeling of we can finish each other's sentences, and that soulmate kind of feeling of really focused on similarities. And then in that next stage is we start coming into view as, oh, well, actually we're different and we have differences. And this is where our attachment style differences may start to show up, and that can become challenging in terms of that sense of security. So yes, it is the security starts to feeling at risk usually in that stage. And so you want to quickly move into, okay, we can still be secure and different. We don't have to have the same attachment style. We don't have to have the same interests or personalities. And we can still have an amazing relationship. What it requires is that you learn to talk about everything and
Yeah.
anything, and to do it in a way where you stay right side up and you don't, spiral into an argument or a standoff, right? Silent treatment.
Standoffs will never get you anywhere.
They do not.
They
Only
do not.
one of you ends up feeling relief, and one of you probably ends up feeling pain. So
Yeah.
not a very good combo.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about those hurdles as you go through, like moving through it, is just, one couple avoiding communication. What are some other like big red flags as if you're thinking about, I don't know, as I'm thinking about this, as I structured our conversation today, I was thinking about couples who may be thinking about divorce, or, I mean, in my divorce, I was in that space where, in my marriage, probably, I don't know, 7 years in, and I got divorced at 12 years of marriage, like thinking about, is this repairable or not? Is this relationship hurdle one I can get over or not? Like what space, those trade-offs. So when I think about those hurdles, what do you think are how do you know if your relationship isn't going to make it past that hurdle? When is it not going to be fixed? How do you know the difference?
Yeah. Yes. Is it time to stay or go? That's always a big question. Um, so I think that a big obvious one, and I need to mention it, is if there's abuse happening in the relationship and and a person is the victim of that, and there's no change in sight, you got to get out, just for your own health and well-being and mental health, and for the security of if you happen to have kids. Another, contempt is a big thing. If there's not friendliness, and every time you start talking to each other, there's just kind of nasty attitudes, not necessarily verbal, but just an air of contempt and uh, unfriendliness, that's a big sign that it's time to move on. For some people listening, maybe it is that if you're in a heterosexual marriage and you're recognizing that maybe you have a different sexual orientation, that could be a time to end a marriage if what you long for is to explore a same-sex relationship. Another thing, this is something that happened to my wife, Lisa, when prior to her divorce, she said, I started having these looping exit strategy sessions in my head. And so what she meant by exit strategy sessions was like, I just kept thinking about ways to end this and how to get out. And so I kind of like that term, if you're having exit strategy sessions in your own head.
So
That's
if I'm Googling how to get divorced every couple of months, then maybe
yes, if you're on Google, absolutely.
Can I survive a divorce? I don't know.
Or asking your friends for family lawyers, divorce attorneys. And the other thing is if your partner is making promises that they continue to break. So it could be something as serious as they're having an affair and they promise they're going to stop, and that's not happening, or some other type of betrayal, like ongoing addiction, that there's a promise of changing and it's just not happening. The main thing is to trust your gut. Your gut will be the one to tell you if it's time, and that doesn't mean that you don't have fear, right? So fear is a normal emotion when you're going through moving toward ending a relationship. So don't look for the absence of fear. That's not a necessary part of the equation. It does take courage.
Yeah.
You can have courage and fear at the same time.
Right. It takes courage to both stay in the relationship and to repair the relationship and leave the relationship in the same way.
That's right. That's right.
I'm just I was thinking back into the moments when I was trying to decide in my relationship what with my ex-husband, what moments I was like, okay, this is divorce worthy, or I can keep repairing through this, or I can keep,
Yeah.
you know, like how many times do you, I know you can't be like, try 10 times and then you're good. Like that following your gut. How do you affirm to yourself, confirm over time that this relationship isn't going to be fixed? You know, you just said if
Yeah.
they continue to do the same thing over and over, you know, what do you can you do as an individual in that relationship to affirm your gut and to support yourself when those
Yeah.
things come up?
And so I am a proponent of therapy,
Hmm.
probably because I'm a therapist and I've done a lot of personal therapy. And so I think giving, if you're not certain, if you're on that brink and not certain, then I think working with an LGBTQ couples therapist that's really trained in couples therapy that can help you, and not just to check the box of, okay, I tried therapy, now I'm free to go. Rather, let's really see if there's a way to make this okay for both of us.
Hmm.
So I do recommend that. And the other thing is, if you have a partner that's not willing, or you just need to be able to process individually, then finding an individual therapist or coach um, can be super helpful as well.
Yeah. Do you think that there's specific signs that you might be able to see in your, I know I've been kind of going on this journey of like, can I feel it in my body? And then I think back to the moments where I was like making these big choices. So I was feeling sicker or more
Mhm,
tired, or like we just said, like in the middle of the night, Googling, could I survive
mhm,
without my
mhm.
husband? You know, like those are
Yeah,
signs,
of
but what are
course.
some?
I think waking up worried,
Mhm,
um, having some physical symptoms like a change in appetite. Maybe you feel like you have a pit in the, a rock in the pit of your stomach, or your throat is feeling constrained,
mhm,
or tight all the time. Um, I do think that our body speaks to us, and so paying attention to that.
that's
Not
great.
You're just not enjoying life too much anymore the way it is.
Mhm. Um, there's a couple of tracks that I'm thinking about as we talk about this, and one of them is the idea that as we talk through this, we started out talking about like what are the cornerstones of a healthy relationship. And I brought that up because I want to, you know, everybody think about, okay, what would be a good strong relationship, and then if I'm going through that, what are some hurdles I'm running into? But then now, if I get to the point where I'm seeing those hurdles, my relationship isn't no longer healthy for either of us, and then I have to choose divorce, like choosing the divorce and making that selfish thing decision is really hard. um, and I want to know from your perspective, been asking actually all my guests this, is like, do you see, is divorce isn't a failure, right? It's not, from your perspective, is it a failure of relationships? You're a relationship expert, you're supposed to have these great relationships, so if I get divorced, is that a failure in my mind, or is that something that
Well, I hope that
you...
all of your podcast guests have had a resounding no, it's not a failure. Because
Yes.
that's certainly my
Mhm,
belief, is that
mhm,
divorce is not a failure.
mhm,
It is the closing of a chapter. So, if we think of chapters of life or seasons of life, and that sometimes we are at the end of a season or at the end of a chapter, and that is okay. And you can look back over the relationship that's ending and let yourself identify the things that were valuable, that were good, that taught you lessons that you enjoyed. It's okay to go into the space of even gratitude about what, the as the relationship was before this point. You can have gratitude for that. And it can still be the right thing,
mhm.
and not a failure at all. Um,
Stage in
it's
your
an
life.
opportunity for growth, and
Mhm,
opportunity. Like you were saying, sometimes people get symptomatic, like their health is compromised when the relationship is going so badly. So it's an opportunity to feel better and have better health and well-being, um, and to rediscover yourself.
mhm. So if you do choose and you're in that space, and I will say everybody has said it's not a failure, but I wanted to
Good.
think
Oh,
about
good.
yes, you are correct. But I think that there's just this cultural understanding that we have around
Yeah.
the shame of choosing yourself and the shame of breaking down a relationship. And getting married is the biggest decision of our lives, and like all of
Mhm.
that sort of stuff that is like,
Mhm.
whew, it's so exhausting. I think once you've gone through a divorce, you're like, you finally realize that all of that is a bunch of crap, but it takes
Yes.
some time. It takes some time to get there. um I'm wondering, so if you do choose yourself and you're in this space, how do you keep yourself from making the same bad relationship habits in the next relationship? How do you do your uncoupling, whether it's conscious with your partner or not, you're in this new space where you're rebuilding. How do you keep yourself in healthy relationships? And what are the signs of, that you're doing the right thing moving forward?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. I think one thing is to get support through the process, and I think in fact, you have a support group for people going through the process, and something like that's just a wonderful opportunity, so that you're not alone. You're adjusting to and sort of accepting that you're going to be alone for a while, and that's okay. Um, and so don't really work on the shame and the blame, right? Not self-blame or blame of your ex, because blame keeps us stuck. And what you
Mhm.
want is to free yourself up so that you can be really open to another relationship in time. That requires that you kind of unpack the baggage that got created. So support groups, coaching, therapy can help with that. Um, if a person enjoys and gets something out of journaling, I think it can be really great exercise to write down, okay, these are the things that I would not want in my next relationship. And so that your subconscious mind can start thinking about, okay, how am I going to prevent that next time around? Um, Moving into a lot of self-care, both, in terms of physical, like exercise and meditation, healthy eating, um, and doing things that you stopped doing, that really were nourishing to you individually. Creativity is a great place to put energy. You can rediscover a lot about yourself and who you are now, right? Learning who you are at this point in your life. And then I think for a lot of people that have been through a divorce or a major breakup, it's scary to get into another relationship. That
Mhm.
fear of, am I going to, is the same thing going to happen again? And here's the warning. The same thing will probably happen again unless you do some work.
Yeah.
And that can come in so many forms. I mean, it can come by reading blogs or getting a couple of good books on relationships, watching experts on TikTok, getting into therapy. I have a coaching program that's designed for lesbian and queer couples, and it's a 5-week program that teaches people how to have a healthy relationship. So something like that. Being willing, having the mind of a beginner, like, okay, I want to learn what it takes to create an amazing relationship, and that information is out there. So that sometimes takes a little humility to say I don't
Mhm.
know everything. Um, I think those things can help, and then take your time. Don't rush. You know, you rebound relationships. They can be fun, and they're problematic sometimes. So take time, enjoy focusing on yourself and friends and family and kids.
Mhm. Yeah, so take time to get healthy. And I do think that it is possible. I mean, I'm in a relationship where the divorce and the relationship were all happening at the same time in this new relationship space. So it is possible, but only if both, again, like as we were talking about in secure
Yes,
relationships, if both people in the couple are willing to do the work towards
yes.
security, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's right. And for many of us, I'll raise my hand to this. We're so wired to be in a relationship that it can happen really quick to that you go from one to the other. And that's okay too, as long as you're mindful, as you say, about okay, what's the work we need to put in here?
Mm. Doing the work. Doing the work.
And the play. I mean, it's not all about work. It's
Yeah,
about
no, it's not all about work. No, I mean, divorce is a lot of work though. You're right. Like if you're making this big choice to choose yourself and you want to live a healthier life outside of that relationship, it makes sense to do the work to build yourself up. Like this is a moment to do that. Why not
yeah.
do that? I mean, it's hard. You have the grief of the shift in everything in your past
Mhm.
relationship, but it makes so much sense now to move beyond that, to build yourself up, to bring yourself to this new space that is for you, whether that's in a new relationship or not.
Yeah,
Mhm,
I like that.
mhm. Do you think, just thinking about unconscious coupling or conscious coupling, unconscious, maybe that those are for the people that didn't get to choose. I mean, I get it, but um, are there couples in um, types of relationships that are better suited for conscious coupling than others? What is you, if you're going into that process, what should you look for in your partner as you're doing it consciously together versus like one of you, making all the decisions apart?
Yeah, so I think a partner that's open to self-discovery, that's open to just acknowledging that this is something we're going through together. Why let's do it in the best way.
Hmm.
If there's a desire to have some kind of amicable amicable connection or friendship after, or if you share kids or pets that you're going to have interaction around, um, that's another reason to do it. But I think what it takes is an openness from both partners, um, and possibly having the awareness and desire that we we're taking ourselves into the next relationship. And so let's learn what we can from this one and go through this process in a way that we feel good about ourselves and we can learn some things and and acknowledging that it also sets us up to be more successful in a next relationship.
Hmm.
I feel like I'm rambling. I hope that held together.
No, you're not rambling. Um, I think let's go back on that. So I think what you're saying is, if both couples are in it and both couples want to acknowledge, I think whether you have kids or not, right? If
Yes.
maybe you've been married for 10 years and you haven't had kids, or you've been in this long-term relationship and you're looking at separating. I mean, there's some stuff you share, whether that's friends, family members, I mean, one of the biggest losses that I feel like I felt in my marriage, my divorce, I didn't see coming, was like the loss of my ex-husband's family and what that looks
Mhm.
like. So no matter if I had kids or not, there's some sort of new relationship that needs to be created outside of that. And
Yes.
sometimes it's healthy to do that, and sometimes it's not, depending
That's
on
right.
whether,
That's right.
yeah, the person is abusive or not abusive. Well, that's in one thing, or if you're not in it together. But um, so if you're both in it and want to create something new, even if it's hard, conscious uncoupling could be a way to do that. So you both are on a good setting, a good
That's right.
footing.
That's right.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about I don't know, it seems so hard. Now I'm thinking about when I went through my divorce, and I've heard from others too, that you get to this point where it's so messy and so hard and the emotions are so high that conscious uncoupling seems impossible. Like maybe you've
Mhm.
gone down that. Doesn't happen for everybody, right? So what if you miss the boat though? Can you go back and fix it? Or like
If you
once
miss the
one and
boat
done?
yeah, because you're right, conscious uncoupling would be done sort of early on in the process, not
Mhm.
after you've gotten into divorce wars with
Yeah.
attorneys, sort of thing.
Hmm.
Um, and probably possibly even before you each hire an attorney, which is a good idea, by the way. Um, if you miss that boat, if both people are open to having some conversation, I think some of that can be retrofitted.
Mm,
It requires an openness from both parties, and a desire to, part of the conscious uncoupling process that I do is to help couples be reflective over, like, okay, this isn't a failure, and here are the things that I will always hold dear. Here are the things that I love about you, what I'll miss, and talk through those things, as well as, and here's what I'm grateful for. Here's what I'm looking forward to. Here's how I hope we can remain, connected over time or not. So both some reflection and some looking forward conversation.
mhm. Yeah, I was just thinking about the point where if you weren't able to do that and you've argued through everything, and then in the end maybe you're legally divorced already and you have kids, and then all of a sudden you're both in this space where you feel like you can finally do that. It's never too late, right? It's never too
Yeah,
late.
that's
I
right.
think.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. You just mentioned you both you should have an attorney. Why is that? Yeah.
I think that when we're in the middle of a divorce, we're not at our best selves, and we're not,
Mhm.
our executive functioning may not be at its best. And so having an attorney helps us think through things, and things that maybe we, just haven't considered. So it's a protection for,
Mhm.
um, for for each individual, and for the future. Um, in terms of some, whether it's custody or financial agreements, or retirements, or any of
Mhm.
those things. And I just think it's very helpful to have a knowledgeable person guiding that ship.
Mhm. I agree. I agree. I think I've done it. I had experience both ways. I've obviously in this community seeing it done in both way in lots of various ways. And people can do it without attorneys. I think it takes a very special person to be able to do that, in this way that
Mhm,
they feel good enough and trust each other enough, even though they're getting divorced and separating, to be able
mhm,
to do it without attorneys or somebody on their side. And that's pretty amazing to be able to have,
mhm,
if you can do that. But yeah, back yourself up, support yourself, even if you're uncoupling in a space where you both agree that you need to be uncoupled, that the relationship isn't working, that it's still important to have either a mediator or somebody to help guide you through how that process works, because there's so many legal ramifications, financial ramifications over time.
yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
um What do you think if you were talking to somebody who was just thinking about getting divorced, or maybe let's ask both questions. If somebody's thinking about getting divorced, what do you think is the most important thing for them to think about, to keep in mind as they make that decision for themselves?
um Well, I think there's long-term effects, and it's important to think through those, particularly if you have kids, um, and not exclusively, right? Like, okay, let me think through the long-term effects of this.
Mhm.
Um, Keep in mind that even when it's the right thing, it's a painful process, and it is a grief process. And so even when you know that it's right, you got to anticipate that there will be some hard days and some sad moments, and maybe even some doubt. So just to know that that's normal. Um, that's off the top of my head. I'm curious what you would add to that,
What I would
Tara.
add to that, I mean, I think that's straight on when you think about it. I think I always say trusting yourself is probably the
Yeah.
number one thing to do, but it's the hardest thing to do. It's the hardest thing.
Yeah. No, I love that.
Yeah, especially when you're in this painful spot, right? Like you just mentioned it, and I think it brings up emotion every time I think about it, but I can like specifically feel what I felt like when I was making the final decisions about getting divorced. Like there was these moments where I'd be like, should I, shouldn't I? Googling in the middle of the night, figuring, should I do it or not? And then the final moment of the decision too, it's like from that moment of saying it out loud, to the actual like physical
Mhm.
legal divorce, that space is a whirlwind of
Yeah.
mess
Yeah.
and anxiety and grief
Lots of
and
pain. That's
so
right.
much pain. Yeah. I don't know how many times I found myself on the floor and being like, I can't go any further down than here. It feels like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now that's when you reaching out for support is so important.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't have
Trust
done it
trust
without a
yourself. I
therapist.
love that.
Yeah. But sometimes you need people to remind you that you're trustworthy, that you're worthy,
Yeah. That's
your
right. That's
therapist, your
right.
best friend, your mom, all whoever's supportive of you in that space.
That's
How
right.
about on the other side? So once you've made the decision, you're rebuilding, you're out in the world looking at, I mean, you've mentioned quite a few of these already, but like looking at, taking the time to heal, all that sort of stuff. But like, what do you think is the most important thing as you're rebuilding, focusing on the future?
I I think that getting to know yourself again is really important, so that and that doesn't take like months and months, but really having the spirit of the mindset of, okay, who, who am I? What do I like? What are my desires, my hopes, my dreams, my deal breakers, my bottom
Mhm,
lines, all of that, and spend time with you, because the number one of the number one things, aside from communication and all the things we talked about, that makes a relationship really healthy and lasting is if you can show up as your authentic best self. And the only way to do that is if you get clear about that. And we
mhm,
develop over our adulthood and we change. And so taking some time, if you were in a marriage for 7+ years, you've changed a lot. And so take time to know who you are now.
mhm,
Um, I think there can be some risk of self-medicating, to kind of numb the pain and the grief. And so that's keep awareness around that. And we self-medicate in lots of ways. It's not just drugs and alcohol. It can be
mhm,
food or scrolling on social media, sleeping more. There any way that we numb out. So that's something to be on the lookout for, and you want to
mhm.
avoid that.
Yeah, I think there's this debate I've had with myself is, and if I talk to others about, is when you get to that space where you avoid it or where you're self-medicating,
Mhm.
exhausted, it actually draws out the feeling, right? It makes it last
Yeah.
longer.
Yes.
You're in it longer
Yes.
instead of just feeling it. Like
That's right.
something I've learned. Like if I just let myself feel it, I just sit in it for a minute, it's actually going to pass away more quickly than
Oh,
if I avoided
that's right.
it. That's hard to do.
Yeah,
So hard to do. And you make it sound so easy just to figure yourself out after you get divorced. It's not that easy, is it?
it is not that easy.
No.
You get help, right? Let some of that people that know you can trust yourself, or a
Mhm.
support group, or therapy, or getting a journal for doing journaling.
Mhm.
There's lots of ways for that self-discovery.
Yeah, and you can't do it alone, right? It's impossible.
Mm, I
No.
don't think so.
No. Connection's key, whether that's through, yeah, all the things that you were saying. But it's
Yeah,
very important. I know I'm thinking about I just keep reflecting on every time. This is what happened to me when I was going through divorce or
that's
whatever.
good.
But I'm in that space of rebuilding now, and how often I'm like, my partner was asking me the other night, like, how do you want the air conditioning to work this summer? Or like, how's your, do you get cold at night? Do you get hot at night? And I was like, I don't even know. Like, everything is brand new. Everything
Yeah.
is brand new. I don't even know. Am I cold at night? Hot at night? I don't even know anymore. It's so wild. It's like this
Yeah,
wild
yeah.
transition phase of these like little things that pop up over time that you just have to pay attention to and be okay with the fact that it's changed. I think that's been,
Mhm.
as you were saying, that like we always are growing and changing. I think for some reason that's been hard for me to believe, like I'm always the same person I've been, but no, it's not
Well, and
true.
parts of you are the same, right? We have both.
Mhm, mhm,
We have things that stay the same across life, and then there are many things that change.
mhm,
So there are core things about you that are the same, and you've grown and changed. That both are true.
Yeah, both are true. Well, thank you so much for walking through. I don't know, we talked about so many things. It's healthy relationships and red flags in relationships, and um, talked about what's the most important thing to think about. I don't know. I think it still feels like a little bit like I want to hear from you one more time. If I'm thinking about getting divorced and I don't know if my relationship's healthy or not anymore, what can we leave our listeners with to think about? What would you say to them? Signs to look at or things to think about?
Yeah. So if you're being abused, get the hell out of there. If there's so much conflict that you find yourself like in this hostile environment, and there's so much fighting and unfriendliness and contempt, and particularly if you've made efforts to change that and it's not changing, that's a really big red flag. If in the pit of your gut you just keep waking up feeling like, I'm not in the right relationship, this is not right for me, you can honor that. And if you're uncertain, then go talk to somebody to help you sort through what does that mean. um, am I missing something?
No, I think that's great. I think that's great. I think that is like, pay attention to how you're feeling, get help if you need it. People are out there. Yeah. And if you're thinking about it, then that's probably what needs to happen. And you can figure out a way to get through it. Yeah, I think that's great. Uh, For our listeners, I just want to, if they want to find out more of the stuff you're doing and the work that you're doing, you can check out your website, Lesbian Couples Institute. You're also on TikTok and Instagram. I'll put all these links in the show notes. But I appreciate you taking this time with us to talk through how to see the red flags in our relationships and
You're
uncouple.
so
And
welcome. It's been fun talking with you. And yeah, Lesbian Couples Institute, there's a little free gift there for people that pop onto the website if they're looking for a resource for their relationship, either now or in the future. Yeah.
all right. Well, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.